Alright guys, everyone's going to hate me by the end of this video, but someone has to say it. Over the past few months, I've gained a few subscribers, so I guess I can afford to lose some today. There's no easy way to put this, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So here it is. It would be my personal preference if people like Rehab Room and many of his subscribers didn't reproduce. Yep. I said it. Now, to be clear, I actually agree with about 95% of what Rehab Room and other black pill creators say. But in my opinion, they leave out crucial parts of the discussion. Whether it's deliberate or just lack of deeper reflection, I don't know, but it's incomplete. In Rehab Room's latest video, he highlights that we're living in a time of extreme sexual selection. Looks are everything, for both men and women.
Which one would you say has better genes? A 6'3", 6'4", brain-dead pretty boy who works a dead-end job, or a manlet scientist?
He explains that this can have dysgenic effects because it's no longer the smartest or most capable people having kids, but rather the tall guys with pretty faces. And he's right. When it comes to reproduction, women overwhelmingly select for height. Tall men have the highest reproductive success, followed closely by facial attractiveness. Status and income come in behind, and while those are correlated with intelligence, they're secondary. In a way, women are acting like eugenicists. If everything else is equal, they'll pick the smarter guy over the dumber one. If everything else is equal, they'll pick blue eyes over brown, or funny over boring. So they're not consciously being dysgenic, it's just that height and looks get disproportionately emphasized. But let's be honest, men aren't any better. You could argue we're worse. Many men would gladly choose a woman with average intelligence over a genius, just because it makes them feel more dominant. So sexual selection is happening, yes, but natural selection in its traditional sense has been virtually eliminated for centuries. Natural selection used to mean that if you couldn't plan for the winter, you'd die. That's no longer the case. In today's society, almost everyone survives. What men have done for thousands of years is build systems to gain access to women. And that's exactly what we see in Rehab Room's comment sections, guys saying things like, I have a PhD in mathematics and I still can't get a girl. The underlying message is, I should be the one reproducing. I'm a net positive to society. But here's the thing, that's just subjective. Throughout history, men have always come up with reasons to justify why they deserve access to women. I'm a man of God. It's divine will that I have children. I fought for my country, my children will be strong warriors. Every man thinks he's the good guy and deserves a family. In Western societies, two conditions have traditionally determined whether a man gets to have a family. 1, he has to be able to provide for that family. 2, a woman has to choose him. Honestly, that's not a bad system. I think it's morally wrong to redistribute other men's money to raise your children, and it's wrong to force women to be with men they don't like. I recently watched a fascinating video from a German historian. He read letters exchanged between a woman and a high-ranking SS officer during World War II. The officer had a fling while on leave, the woman got pregnant, and she demanded support. In his letters, the officer promised to pay for everything, but begged her not to tell his wife. This was in 1943, in the middle of a total war. And yet, even then, there was a strong sense of moral obligation. The Wehrmacht wouldn't have let their officers just knock up random girls and let the public foot the bill. It simply wouldn't have felt right. And I think most people still agree with that today. We should not be obligated to pay for Chad's children. It's ethically wrong, and even historically, people seem to understand that. Which leads to the next question. What do you do if no girl wants to have sex with you? Honestly, someone like Wheat Waffles probably would have been able to reproduce if society were more traditional. If men collectively decided that casual sex is wrong and that every man should commit to one woman, this entire issue could be solved tomorrow. Men run society. If men say promiscuity is unacceptable, it will stop. Not completely, of course, but it'll shrink down to something like what we saw in the 1960s. You'd have to ban social media and create a new moral framework, but it's not impossible. That would benefit average men the most. Chad would be off the market. Women would have to lower their standards or stay single. This is really just a political question. If you trained average people to believe that having a family is the highest moral good, and that being a loyal wife earns you social status, then of course most women would act traditionally. But it's men who are responsible for shaping society in a way that reflects those values. If you're ruled by a Marxist elite that despises tradition, glorifies degeneracy, and does everything in its power to suppress family formation, then midwits will simply adapt to that environment. People conform to the incentives and narratives around them. So, this is part 1. If we all agreed on a new set of values and took control of the institutions, media, education, law, then we could build a society that reflects our preferences. In such a world, Wheat Waffles' looks match would probably be dating him instead of partying and riding the carousel. But now let's talk about Rehab Room. Rehab Room is an ethnic guy with several objectively unattractive features. He lives in the West, has pronounced dark circles around his eyes, upper eyelid exposure, and severe balding. His skin is damaged, with visible acne scars. So let's ask the obvious question. Why would any girl choose him? People will say, but he didn't choose to look like that. Sure, but why does that matter? Women also didn't choose what they're attracted to. We discriminate against traits people didn't choose all the time. I avoid people I consider stupid, that's not their fault either. But I'm not morally obligated to like or include everyone. And I'm certainly not obligated to find someone attractive just because he wants to be desired. Others argue, but he's a net contributor to society. Again, why should I care? If you could design your wife and children, would you prioritize productivity and contribution to society? Or would you simply want them to be beautiful and resemble you? Nobody deserves resources or love just because they exist. Being self-sufficient is the bare minimum. In many ethnic societies, reproduction wasn't about love or mutual attraction, it was often forced or arranged. Women didn't have the freedom to choose the most attractive man, they were given to whoever had the power or status. This may have led to less sexual selection, and therefore, inferior physical traits compared to societies where attraction played a larger role in mate choice. And yes, history is full of examples where women were coerced or outright kidnapped for reproduction. This is something that a disturbing number of Rehab Room subscribers openly advocate for. But the idea that women secretly enjoy this is pure cope. We've seen what happens in real life when women are assaulted by unattractive men, trauma, lifelong mental health issues, and sometimes even suicide. The aftermath of World War II, with widespread sexual violence and mass self-deletion of women in Germany, makes it absolutely clear. Women don't secretly desire to be taken by orcs. That is fantasy, not reality. Here's what I think actually happened. Many ethnic families migrated to the West for economic reasons. But their evolutionary backgrounds were shaped by different pressures. Now their sons, especially those with weak phenotypes, can't compete in the Western dating market. Take a 5 feet 4 inches Indian guy living in Sweden. Even in the 90s he would have struggled. Today, with social media and hypergamy on full display, it's completely over for him. So now these men have found strange allies. White normies who are also struggling in the dating market. Together, they form this weird alliance where they blame women for everything. Thinking Ape is a classic example of this. It's white and ethnic men projecting their frustrations onto women while carefully avoiding any mention of the actual elite shaping society. Dark Pill with Mercer is another one. He and his ethnic friends spend all day hating on white women while never touching the core of the problem. And listen to some of the blatant lies they spread.
There's no way that they could finance this. But think about it. Are women actually productive in the economy? They're not. They're basically useless in the economy. Like, there is this, what was the meme?
Yeah, they just like drain. They scrape off like the excess profits of companies, like big companies mainly.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you have to give them something to do, and they have these requirements. You have to hire a certain percentage of women, or you're going to be in trouble. And this comes back to mind, and it's so true.
White women are useless and bring nothing to society. This is factually false. While average white men are more productive than white women, a country made up entirely of white German women would still economically outperform any African country by a mile. White women are a net benefit to society. In contrast, African and Arab men, on average, are a net negative. There's a reason YouTube allows channels like Rehab Room to thrive while banning creators who criticize mass migration. The elite wants white men to hate white women. But here's the truth, white women were never the problem. They're not genetically different from how they were in 1930. What changed is the truth regime, the belief system, and the technologies that manipulate behavior. There has never been a time in history where someone like Rehab Room would have been able to attract women with his looks. Not in 1930. Not in 1830. Not in ancient Rome. The only thing that's changed is the narrative, not the biology. Now, of course, many of Rehab Room's viewers will argue that he's such a good guy that we should just force women to be with him. But that brings us to another problem. Ethnic genes are dominant, and if you go down that path, the population will slowly start to lose its European phenotype and end up looking entirely non-European. So here's my pitch to white people of Western European descent on how we could realistically improve our situation. First, we need to stop giving welfare money to people just for having children. It's dysgenic. It's weak. And frankly, it's cucked. Then, we need to create a new moral framework, a truth system, where having a family and raising children is seen as the highest moral good. It should become a mark of virtue to raise a family. Promiscuity, on the other hand, should be viewed as shameful and destructive, just as it was historically. In a society built on those values, probably 70% of men would be able to have a wife and children. The remaining 30% can either try their luck in Asia, where white DNA is still seen as desirable, or accept a single life and cope as best they can in the West. This is a realistic, achievable solution if we're serious and willing to work together. So I challenge Rehab Room. If you think this isn't the way forward, then come up with a better solution. But don't sit around blaming women and pretending there's no way out. Try to see the world through the eyes of a girl for a moment, or just imagine what you'd want for your mother or daughter. Would you want her to be assaulted by some random ethnic guy and forced to live under Sharia law? Or would you want her to freely choose someone she loves? Would you feel better knowing you were the product of rape, or would you rather know your parents had you out of love and mutual choice? I think it's perfectly natural for women to want to choose their partners. And honestly, I believe most women have good intentions, whether it's going vegan, fighting for environmental protection, or caring about animal welfare. Those are noble instincts. If they weren't being indoctrinated by Marxist ideology, but instead influenced by national values, they would behave just like women did in the past, loyal, family-oriented, and grounded. Now, I get it, it sucks being a guy in today's dating market. Your gender was determined before you were even born. The chromosome that decided it came down to random molecular noise. And yes, women have it way easier when it comes to dating. but I can acknowledge that reality without simping for ethnic guys. If someone like Elliot Rodger can't get a white girlfriend, I don't sympathize with him. In my ideal world, both Rehab Room and Elliot would simply remain incels. If you can't provide for your children, you'd struggle. And promiscuity would be treated the same way racism is treated today, completely demonized by society. Not because it's inherently immoral, but because normies have been conditioned to believe it's evil. This whole obsession with sexual and natural selection, it's just a cope. It's a way for weak men to avoid doing the hard work of changing society. Instead, they form this weird, defeatist alliance against women. It's bitter. It's counterproductive. And it's honestly kind of pathetic. Female nature is what it is. It's up to men to find a solution that benefits us but also our mothers and daughters.